In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Windows Phone Central Podcast, episode 145 for July 19th, 2012. Howdy, folks. Daniel Rubino here, joined with Jay Bennett. Sadly, no Rafael Rivera this week. He is busy with work and is unfortunately unable to make it. He sends his apologies. He actually doesn't, because he never apologizes.
He doesn't send his apologies, let's be honest.
But I'm sure
he sends a note that says he can't come out to play and he's very sorry about it.
Right. So he's very busy now. He's getting ready to move to Washington State, and so he's
that sounds awesome.
Indeed, moving's always a pain in the butt, especially when you gotta switch states. But he'll persevere. Anyways, we have a busy podcast ahead of us. Jay, how you doing? You're coming from
not
work.
Too bad. Getting very close to my city being overrun with lots of people, and kind of not looking forward to it because, frankly, our transport network can't handle the transport load we've already got on it. So the second we get Olympic traffic, I'm probably going to end up just squashed against every single tube for
the Olympics. We'll be talking a little about the Olympics in a little bit here because George did a nice little roundup of apps. Yeah, he did a good roundup of Olympic apps for everybody who's going to be following. I still don't actually have live TV despite that big thing behind me. So I'll probably miss most of the Olympics. I just use that for Xbox and streaming, so screw TV. Anyways, let's head into the news. Some big news today and some news coming out probably during this podcast, which is, of course, earnings calls. We've had Nokia's already. Microsoft is expected to come out later today, and we don't have their results. Microsoft's will be a little odd because they had that write-off with that company, so that's going to be a little weird to discern. We do have our financial analyst, Chris Umatowski, who probably just butchered his last name, but you'll see an article from him probably a little later on that he handles our financial stuff because I would probably ruin it. Anyways, Nokia came out today with their earnings call. The good news, if there was any, is it's not as bad as
it was good news.
Thinking. Well, I suppose so. I mean, and the market is responding positively, at least, to their results.
Yeah.
I think people were really... the media have been really bad for the last 2 weeks.
So what were the headlines, Daniel, from this call?
Huh? From this
what were
call?
the headlines from this call? Yeah,
it basically says, most of them is that they're still burning through cash, but, turnaround looks possible now. And that's the takeaway, I think, is most analysts say now, okay, they probably hit bottom, and they look like they're starting to finally recover. And
yeah, we're up to how many Lumias was it sold?
4 million.
See, that's nothing to snoot at. It's a good number, and we're up from, what was it, 1 million last? Was it 1 million or 2 million last quarter? I forget.
Right, it was 2 million, I believe. So they sold 73 million total, which means 69 million of those phones were not Windows phones. So that goes to tell you just how off their things are and how much they have to catch up with. And clearly their Symbian stuff is still selling. And that's kind of the argument a lot of people made, that they shouldn't have just completely shut off Symbian because it's still a large market behind them. There may be some truth to that, but what's done is done. What looks to be
they
the
haven't
case of
really completely shut it off.
No, they have the Asher devices coming out, right? And so those seem to be still doing pretty well.
And the awesome PureView.
And the PureView, right, which seems to be selling all right. Although even that just had a little bit of a price cut recently too.
Understand.
But
as it stands, the current stock valuation is was it up 6.94% from beginning of trading. It jumped right up. It jumped up about 15% after the 4 million announcement, which is actually really good news for Nokia. Although saying that, stocks in general are still pretty low compared to sort of a month ago. I think we are at rock bottom. I think you've pretty much hit the nail on the head there. It's a case of a lot of stuff at Nokia wasn't working, and we're in a state now where the Symbian market share is going to drop. Everyone's going to move away from Symbian phones, and unfortunately, at the moment, the Windows phones aren't catching up quickly enough with regards to what people are moving to. And some of that is because people who are going to move away from Symbian would have liked the fact that they had a bit more of a customization of their phone, a bit more of what I'd call a sort of geek's phone where you can get to play around with it a bit. And you kind of get that more from Android than from Windows Phone. We all know that's the case. People who bought Nokias because they thought they were reliable phones will possibly be looking at the Lumias and thinking, yeah, this is the next way to go. I think it's good news. I want to call it good news, even though everyone else in tech media seems to think that Nokia have made a huge mistake.
Yeah, it's I mean, hindsight's always 2020, right? And one thing
Yeah.
we know is smartphone business is very hard to predict. So, Nokia seems to be recovering, but they still got a long way to go. They've already set the groundwork for Q3, and not to get expectations up for that as well. So, that's going to be another poor quarter. But hopefully, with Windows Phone 8, things will start to stabilize for both Microsoft and Nokia, as well as HTC and Samsung in this regard, and we'll start to see sales. But that's always the big issue right now, right? We keep pushing off these that Windows Phone is going to take off at some point. So far, it hasn't. Now, if you break down those numbers even further, it does look to be the case that they've only pushed over 300,000 Lumia 900s on AT&T, and that's not too good for a number. It's not terrible, but it's obviously not a huge hit. I think everybody would have been pleased to hit that magical 1 million number, right? 1 million units sold. I think would have been sort of like the 100,000 apps in the marketplace. It's arbitrary, 800,000 could have been good too, but that 1 million number would have made better headlines. And so obviously they fell quite short of that. Who knows what their internal projections were? We did an article about this last night, of course, lamenting about how everybody was talking about the price cut as being a sign of weak sales. And, we ended the article by saying it doesn't mean, the sales could be weak for a 900, but the price cut actually doesn't have much to do with that, because after 3 months, most phones get their price cut anyway, so that's not too big of a deal. So people in comments point out the iPhone doesn't, but of course the iPhone is the exception to everything, so you can't use that as a comparison. I think high-end Android devices are the right comparison here. So, but
yeah,
AT&T added another.
There's some truth in that.
And AT&T added the pink Lumia 900 this past weekend, and if they're trying to clear stock and trying to get rid of this device, adding another phone with another color as another SKU, as they call it, is not the way to do it. So obviously AT&T feels okay with this number in sales with Nokia, and I think that's something that a lot of people just kind of overlooked, and it's kind of like a big deal actually.
Yeah, and as you pointed out in that article, I mean, part of the one of the ones that was trying to pile on over here was the Daily Mail was suggesting that basically the analysis was, Windows Phone's not doing very well because the Lumia is suddenly having its price slashed. You can't rely on the Daily Mail for absolutely anything newsworthy, so we might as well just completely throw that out. It's more it's a ridiculous publication, and it's more a case of, as you quite rightly put in the article, it is normal for phones to come down after 6 months, and it has been around for 6 months. You have to remember that. Some good points being made in our comments, though, that part of it is still an issue that it needs more networks out there in the US. Now, we don't have this problem over in the UK because we can pick up Nokia Lumias on most of our networks. I know it's pretty much a similar story across a lot of Europe. But obviously, you guys are still limited to, what is it, AT&T for the Lumia 800, 900, and T-Mobile for the 710. Have I got that right?
Kind of. The 800 was never officially released by AT&T. It's only sold through the Microsoft Store and Amazon with AT&T bands, but it's not advertised as being for AT&T. And doesn't have LTE. Yeah. So it's sort of an off-contract phone that just works with. So it's just the 900 and 710 really the only two devices sold here in the United States. So, certainly, weak sales, but like I said, the bottom line seems to be that it's not as bad as people were projecting, and the bottom seems to be hit, and the market seems to be responding somewhat positively. So, this may be the turnaround moment. We all were expecting this to be kind of not so great, but that's kind of the takeaway.
It's difficult because we're kind of used to saying, unfortunately, in the Windows Phone world that, and we do get used to saying, wait for the next big thing, wait for what's going to happen next. And it gets a little bit tiring, even from our perspective, where we are positive about most Windows Phone news because we have to be and because we want to be. And the other day, we love the system, and frankly, it means that I can keep developing apps. But it is a case of we're now in a lull. We are going to be in a lull because a lot of people will pick up that Windows Phone 7 won't be upgradable to the full version of 8. And some people will hold off and they'll wait for what's going to be the next big thing. Now, we expect Nokia to do the smart thing and to come out swinging when it comes to Windows Phone 8 and to whack one of the nice big pure view cameras on it. And actually, I think that some of the more, what's the right word I want? Pessimistic tech media sites and other media sites will look upon a Windows Phone 8 device with a pure view camera very, very well, especially if it has as good a design as the Lumia line has so far. So I think And in this case, as much as it's ridiculous to have to say it again, we have now got to wait for Windows Phone 8 to find out just how well the Nokia Windows partnership is going to go.
This is the big issue right now with Windows Phone, is that it's a good operating system that's solid, and most people seem to agree with that. The app issue, the app gap, if you want to call it that, is shrinking day by day. The issue now is, why do people need to switch to it? There's no compelling reason right now. I mean, you can make these subjective calls about, well, it's nicer, it's smoother, it's faster, it just works, it's pretty, and all that. But that's not necessarily a giant reason that's going to catapult the market forward.
It's not headline-grabbing reasons, though, is it? I think that's what it is. I'm starting to realize that.
It's a game changer. You know, I would think a Nokia PureView, it doesn't even have to be 41 megapixel. It could be 20 megapixel. As long as it has that big sensor and has something similar to it, that's going to grab headlines. Now, the counterpart to that is it also needs to be widely available. So it needs to be pushed on multiple carriers worldwide. That, I think, could definitely get headlines. That could get people talking. And that's something that could really change it. But if we're just going to start to see Android devices with Windows Phone slapped into it, and we're just going to see the same thing. Even the quad or dual core processors and NFC is not going to be enough to change this. It just won't. You know, that's a subjective minor change, and I mean, it'll make the experience better for users. We'll all appreciate it, but it's not going to be something the market's going to go, oh, this is different. And that's what's needed at this point.
It's actually, you make a good point there, because I think I was reading a comment today. I can't remember where the comment was. It might have been our site. It might have been another one. Someone was talking about the idea that the problem that Windows Phone has is that it's coming to a market which is relatively saturated without what you'd call a disruptive technology. So as much as some of us viewed it as the sort of interface exactly that we were looking for, and exactly the kind of sort of design principle, the smoothness that we were looking for, what it is ultimately a lot of refinements on a formula that is already there. And I think it's becoming clearer and clearer now that we need a disruptive technology. And there is actually a very strong point to be made that the PureView technology kind of was the most disruptive technology that was announced this year. I mean, people went crazy over it when it was announced. Or was it last year when CS was? I forget the dates. But it has the potential to be a disruptive technology. We need something to get everyone's attention, because unfortunately, the quality product that we've got so far isn't doing the job. It's not getting people's attention in the same way, which is a real shame, because frankly it should be. But we need headlines, and that is what we can look forward to, hopefully, before the end of this year. And perhaps in some way, Windows 8 might be the disruptive technology in a weird way, even though it won't be in the same venue. Just having that out there will hopefully.
It'll help. Like, all these little things help, but it won't be like that term disruptive technology is, key. It really does need something like that, something that's going to need to stand out and get those headlines. So that's the hope. Let's move on. Well, we already talked about the price drop of the 900. That was a pretty popular article. People seem to like that. And it's true. I mean, it's about perspective. Like I said, I wasn't trying to make the argument, no, the 900 is selling really well. I mean, I'm not drinking Kool-Aid here. I know the 900 is not the awesome selling device. But I think perspective was needed in those articles, and the way they were worded with Nokia forced to slash prices just weeks after release. I mean, that's just factually incorrect, and was obviously, that language was totally biased towards painting them bad, whereas those kind of cuts are normal in a life cycle. Now, that's a separate issue from whether or not it's selling well, but I think conflating those two was wrong and disingenuous from a lot of media publications. Speaking of Nokia, let's go on to their shutting down their Helsinki store. So they have, of course, many stores in Finland. This main one here in Helsinki apparently is closed and undergoing renovation. In of itself, not that big of a deal, but although 6 to 8 weeks is a long time.
It's the date that is interesting.
It's opening up a day or two right after Nokia World wraps up. And so it's going to coincide with Nokia World, which of course will be there for that. Which reminds me, I got to get my plane ticket. But Nokia World, we were there last year. It was in London. This year it's going to be in Finland, which I'm pretty excited about. Right in their home turf. They've changed it up a little bit. It's not going to be a giant convention where both the press and public media were there, as well as other carrier partners and everything. That was a big mix of different groups of people. You had your business, you have enthusiasts. This year they broke it apart. They did that actually because they don't have enough room to have hotels and the venues. So they broke it up. So they're going to have like the small public here's our new stuff for a day or two, and then they're going to have their smaller meetings with carrier partners on the side. So yeah, this has fueled speculation that the sign something big is coming. All this. So the big expectation is, of course, in September, Nokia is going to show off Windows Phone 8 devices. They'll probably maybe even show off some tablets for Windows 8. Now, let's not confuse something here. It doesn't mean they're going to release those for sale. We're still predicting October, November for actual Windows Phone hardware to go on sale. That doesn't mean, though, they can't show it off. They did this with the Lumia 800, and they did it with other devices. So they can clearly show off these phones and still get it out there in the press and the media to help turn things around for them and still build up momentum. And so what the store does, I really don't know how that's going to tie into it, but obviously their image and something else is going to be swinging around with this tie-in. So,
it's a big mystery, and I don't know if I also can't work out. We had a QR code which let you to turn a graffiti of or make a graffiti version of your image or an image of some kind that you upload to it. Which I'm trying to work out, is that a cryptic clue? And if so, what is it to?
Yeah, you think it would. It said it starts here or something like that. In other words, it seemed directly tied into it. How that's tied into it.
Maybe the phone's going to be called the Nokia Graffiti. It's a rubbish name, but maybe.
I don't think so. They because only because Elop keeps using Lumia and talked about the Lumia line and Windows Phone 8 going forward. Lumia's line seems to be continuing. Whether PureView will be the Lumia PureView or it's going to be a separate line, I'm not really too sure of. But they seem to be sticking with that. But perhaps Graffiti could be a separate line. I don't really know. I don't want to read too much into that stuff because we'll just be, randomly guessing. But kind of interesting.
I like randomly guessing, as long as we put the mark on it that this is us randomly guessing. I think they'll release a phone that can also massage your feet.
Yeah, okay.
There you go. You heard it here first.
Well, we only have a couple weeks left.
Or feed your cats for you.
Only a couple of weeks left to before we find out. As I mentioned in the article, Nokia always has a few tricks up their sleeve, and I think they'll have something big to show us. So hopefully we'll see that. Speaking of rumors, Windows Phone 8 to have native screenshot capability.
I'm just going to sit back and let you talk on this one because this is all you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm one of those people, obviously I would appreciate having this ability, but I haven't been exactly ridiculous about complaining about it either. There is a third-party option for developer unlocked devices that works actually very well. Now, why has Microsoft not included this in the past? It's obviously a pretty obvious question, especially since it's not like NFC or dual cores where you're talking about some hardware limitation. It doesn't seem like there's anything difficult with implementing screenshot capability, and it could have been done in Mango. I'll say Raphael has an article supposedly coming up, if he's not too busy to get around to it, where he's going to kind of talk about this. And his basic stance is that has to do with, and we've talked about this before, digital rights management. I know it's stupid, but the idea is about copying other people's work and disseminating it on the internet. That's obviously not a consumer concern, but that is a business concern for Microsoft. It's something they have to be worried about. Now, Apple does this with no problem, and of course Android has this too, so it is an odd argument. I'm curious to see where he's going to go with it, but that seems to be the question. The idea, though, and the other issue is why they're going to put it in Windows Phone 8 then if it's an issue. So I don't really know how that's all going to work out. But that is the rumor. Technically, it's not hard to implement, so it shouldn't be that crazy. Supposedly, you're going to hold down the start button and hit the camera button, and that'll do the snapshot. Some people have also asked why this is important. And I broke it down a little bit. For developers, it's important for sharing their apps and getting and promoting it. And for consumers, it's important because people like to share things. And it sounds stupid, but when you go on a lot of social networks and Reddit, stuff like that, you'll see a lot of screenshots from either Android devices or the iPhone with funny conversations and chats and all that getting distributed and shared. What's the value in that? Well, it's basically, viral promotion. And if people start seeing Windows Phone screenshots and images more and more often, it's going to start clicking in their heads. It's actually a pretty good, smart way of advertising a platform. So
you know what? I don't like it when you make a really good point, because then I can't take the mick and say it was just because you wanted to make your life easier for writing articles, because you've got an absolutely spot on point there. with regards to those sort of sites and sort of seeing people laugh at funny conversations. It is a really effective way of advertising for free. Yeah, okay, fair enough. I've got to give you that one because that's a really, really, really good point.
No, the whole idea for making my job easier, like I already have a solution.
It does. It would make your job much easier. Let's be honest.
It would.
The solution works. It's just not easy.
But we've been dealing with this for 2 years now, so I'm not exactly, And I understand Microsoft shouldn't necessarily bend over backwards just to give me and the 15 other bloggers out there a new feature. But I think those are some pretty good reasons. So hopefully we'll see that Windows Phone 8. Like I said, there's a lot left to be learned about what's in Windows Phone 8. So expect more information.
Actually, let's give them a little bit of credit. For developers, they did make it very easy to make screenshots now from the emulator. So there is that, which is actually where we need to share it because you need to upload them. So I'll allow something there because, to be honest, actually, that was one of the biggest annoyances. Before you could do that, because you have to include screenshots when you upload to the marketplace, and trying to
screen cap it.
Yeah. Oh, you had to screen cap the emulator and then cut out the bad bit. It was just effort. It was unnecessary effort. So yeah, that was actually a really big moment. Let's move to the other big. I'm going to put rumor in quote marks. Does Windows Phone 8 have USB mass storage, Daniel?
I think it definitely does. I think this was sort of. And there's debate about the exact terminology. I think that's where the confusion lies here. And I think we need to put this in a little bit of perspective. What we're talking about here is if you threw a storage card into the phone, and unlike Windows Phone 7, where the few early devices, where you could only do it from the beginning. You had to hard reset the phone and put the card in because it became one. With Windows Phone 8, you could be 6 months later, and add a storage card, slide one in, and that's it. It just acts as a secondary storage for things. The notion here is that when you plug the phone now into your computer, it's going to basically pop up like a little thumb drive where you can drag and drop stuff onto it. The larger question is then, like say if you add photos, will those photos be able to integrate into the picture hub? My guess is yes. The phone is going to basically scan that for certain media, and then it'll show up into those hubs. But you can also use it to kind of carry around files, and it's going to just plug into a regular computer and just pop up like a drive. And now, you're not going to have access to the internal memory of the phone, and you're not going to have like a file explorer where you just go around and manipulate stuff. It's going to be very controlled. You're only going to be able to see certain folders and drag and drop certain things. So it's a very limited form, but it's something still that I think a lot of people have wanted. Now, as far as I can tell, and maybe I'm wrong in its interpretation, but Joe Belfiore was pretty clear on this during the presentation. He did sort of skim over it quickly, I'll say that. But even in our private conversations with Microsoft, this is basically how they explained it to us, was that you'll be able to plug it in and use it as an external drive. You can, in fact, put ZAP files on there and sideload apps that way. And that's going to be done too. So that's my interpretation. Do you have a different one, Jay?
So I'm concerned about this, and I'll tell you why. iPhone and Android, Apple in general, haven't used the whole concept of expandable storage. Some people don't like it. Some people do because it keeps things simple. It just means that you have some storage there, and when you write something to your phone, it just goes. Windows Phone has the same thing because at the moment, of course, we stripe all the memory together, and you just save the files wherever the memory gets allocated. It's out of your hands. You don't have to worry about it. The biggest complaint I hear about Android from friends, family, and people that I advise for other reasons is the whole memory issue on a lot of Android phones, and it's something that the OEMs are really good at. There's two examples. One is the HTC Desire and one is the HTC Cha-Cha. And both of them are HTC. I apologize for picking on you, HTC. But effectively, because you can't necessarily install apps on SD cards, because most of the operating memory, things like the email programs, require being run on the internal storage. If the OEM cheaps out and puts in a little bit of memory, a little bit of storage on the main phone device, you end up with a phone experience that's horrific. I have a friend who actually can't receive emails on her HTC Cha-Cha because, it's called something else in America, but it's Cha-Cha over here, simply because she's run out of space on the main drive and she hasn't got almost anything on there at all. Put simply, if Microsoft go down this route, the implementation, from my perspective, has to be it's only for media, perhaps perhaps allow documents as well. I know that they've said XAP, but I think that's a dangerous route to go down. It should be for photos to expand the camera or music.
Yeah, for Zaps, it's to install from, not to.
See, yeah, that's still a dangerous route. To me, I mean, we'll see how they go. We'll see how it goes, because you're then allowing. I mean, okay, side loading is already a bit dodgy, but it's just the principle of what if someone puts code onto your device, which is sort of malware, or what if there's the option for somebody to sort of borrow your phone and load something onto it. I know this is an extreme circumstance, but basically, I don't like the idea of being able to load unsigned code.
Well, yeah, but from what I understand too, with the Zap thing and side loading, it's only for something with enterprise, and there's some controls with it. So I don't think it's just anyone can just load files onto it and just pass it on. I think, perhaps I skimmed over that part of it, but I don't think it's like open where basically every phone is now developer unlocked and you can just sideload Zap files. I don't think that's the case. I think this is, and I remember them saying something, this had to do with the enterprise stores and everything like that. So there may be certain controls with that. But from what I understand, the memory and the expansion is basically just for media files and things like that. It's not stuff that's required for the phone to keep operating. So you can pull it out and the phone will keep working. It's just for more media, basically, media storage, which is, I think, how most people use their external storage. You'd install the main apps to the main memory, and then other things can go to the storage card.
But to do that, you absolutely have to still have the things in place that say OEMs must provide at least 4 gig of memory to do that.
I think they do. Well, I think they do, though. I mean, they didn't abandon we haven't seen it, but they haven't abandoned their hardware.
We haven't seen it yet. We haven't seen it. This is my point.
No,
we don't know. I could be making a big deal out of nothing, but this is why Microsoft have to keep it the way it currently is for that requirement, from my perspective.
I'm pretty positive I can bet on it. They didn't abandon their hardware specifications. I'm actually 99% sure on that. And I bet
I'll believe you on that.
Minimal amount.
I'm just going to answer a quick question from the chat room. Alex Currier has just said, Windows Mobile could run anything from SD cards. Why can't they do it now? In terms of why it doesn't happen on Windows Phone 7, the principle is that once you put a new memory card or something into a Windows Phone 7, Windows Phone, when it first boots, will then just scan all available storage and stripe and make a file system available on any memory devices it can find. So that could be a little bit of internal storage that's like on a chip, and a little bit of storage that's on the SD card. It stripes across all available devices and just provides you with one bulk file system. So the reason that we can't do it now is you can't hot swap and change it, but you can, in theory, put bigger memory inside it. And people were doing for some time. My understanding is that Windows Phone 8 will be done just as a separate memory storage device that you'll be able to sort of look at. My hope is basically I don't want to be file managing on a phone. That's my perspective. I don't really believe that anyone wants to be managing files on their phone. They just want it to appear for the right apps and for things to be attachable to emails, because that's where it matters. Like, for example, the fact that we can't attach PDFs on emails at the moment, it's just buggy. Also, it's annoying. It just needs to be available. It doesn't need a file browser. That's me. That's my thought. Yeah. And as long as it sticks with that, as an expandable storage for music and photos and videos, I'd completely welcome it. I think it's a brilliant idea and something that we do need to see. Yeah, I think I've just about exhausted my mouth on that one. Shocking as it is.
It's one of those things we're going to just have to wait and see. So I don't want to spend too much time on something that we don't have firm details on. So we'll see. A couple weeks. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, AT&T Lumia now offered we did that for $49.
We did. It's pink.
Pink. No, we haven't had much feedback yet. People are buying them, so it's kind of curious if that is actually working.
I'm going to guess they'll say it's pink. I'm going to guess that the feedback will be it's pink.
No, I mean, feedback. I don't know if it's selling well. No, it's color. So it'll be kind of interesting that actually helps or, doesn't do anything. I don't think it's as big as white. And it's always tough going after females. They're a big part of the market, obviously. But Palm was, initially sort of going after sort of that female market for smartphones. It sort of backfired for them. It's tough to get that message right without, I don't know. It's difficult. It's a difficult thing to market to. You don't see many ads, pinpointing right at females.
Well, I know it works. It does work being pink, because a lot of girls I know just sort of saw the fact that it was pink and were really excited by that fact. And heck, my sister's pink Lumia got stolen because it was pink. So
So yeah, there we go. But it doesn't hurt, that's for sure. Hopefully we'll get some feedback. Let's talk about the apps. We've it's been 2 weeks, so we've had quite a few apps coming out. Actually,
can we pick up one? Can we pick up one from the rest first? Because I just want to pick one up or two. In fact.
Okay.
I just wanted to, I wanted to cover the first two that you've got on there, which is the Windows 8 launch date, which is of course is announced, and Office 2013. So the first one that was interesting is obviously the Windows 8 launch date is October 26th. If you haven't already heard that, there you go. There's actually not an awful lot more to say about that, but it's something worth announcing because it also means that hopefully the Surface will be coming out around the 26th, or somewhere close to that, which potentially, as we all know, marks a pretty big moment for Microsoft's mobile strategy. I'm also wondering, I don't know how you're feeling, but I think that October 26th might not be too far away from Windows Phone 8 launch.
Right. I mean, we've been saying this for a while. I mean, people keep asking us when Windows Phone 8 is going to launch. Look at the last 2 years. Microsoft has been on a fairly strict schedule lately, and there's no reason to think they've deviated from that. So the last 2 years, they've announced things in October, and things were available by November. And I think that's still going to be the case. Now, there's this issue, is it going to be like a worldwide launch now? Probably not. Last time they announced Windows Phone, it came out everywhere else first, and then the United States was like a month later. It may be the case here too, although who knows. Having said that, October, November, that's still the date we're guessing, and everybody seems to be centering on it. And so I don't think it's coincidence that Windows 8 Desktop is coming out October 26th, and that happens to coincide with the previous release schedules of Windows Phone. So yeah, I mean, they're obviously going to go for this big bang of Windows Phone 8, Windows 8 tied in together, and why wouldn't they do that? So I would expect, much overlap, and for a few weeks, you're going to see this sort of dual headlining between the desktop OS, new PCs, new phones, all coming out. And if they don't do that, I'd be really upset because it seems like a totally missed opportunity. But the timing just seems so obvious that that's what they're going for, and so I think it's probably fair speculation.
So on the back of that, it's worth us talking about Office 2013 because it's we finally have a full picture of where Microsoft's going with the Office platform. And when you're speaking about Microsoft, you cannot overlook the Office platform because, well, frankly, it's probably the most important thing they do when it comes to their bottom line. So if Microsoft Office is successful with regards to a Metro style, then Metro is going to kick off in all kinds of areas. But they've kind of gone for a sort of happy medium. I don't know, have you had a chance to play with Office 2013 yet?
Yeah, I've been using it every day pretty much.
Really?
Yeah. Well, I've been, ever since I went full time, I've been more careful in my writing. So I use Word first to write in, and then transfer it to our editor to copy and paste it in. And so
it's a built-in blog thing, isn't there? You can actually publish out to a blog from Word, theoretically.
Yeah, it has WordPress integration, I guess. I don't use that. But yeah, evidently you can do that. We use a different backend for our site. So, but no, I really like it. I mean, it's basically they just took it and ironed it down. I haven't been able to play with PowerPoint and some other features yet, but Word, it's nice. It's fast.
So it's quick. It sort of feels like what would happen if the Zune team picked up Office, doesn't it, really, in terms of the desktop software?
Kind of. I mean, it's not a radical departure. When you load it up, everything is still recognizable. So they didn't, screw with, tradition too much. But the whole package was a lot nicer. Installing it was pretty cool because as you installed it, a video came up and walked you through what's new. And it was very kind of peaceful and by the time the video ended, it was pretty much all installed on your system. And so that was kind of nice. It was really no waiting. They made you watch this little video, which was short. It was only 30 seconds or 40 seconds, I don't know. And then by the time that was done, you were already up on the new version. And so that it had and during the setup process, and you'll see them in the preview version, it has a smiley face and sad face, and and when you don't like something, you just click one of the faces, and it gives you a little feedback window. You can tell them why that you didn't like that. And I thought it was kind of cool. Microsoft's big on feedback and trying to please their customers. So, I like it.
Renee is taking an interesting point in the chat room, saying that he thinks it looks horrible, but it wasn't made by Apple. It's more a case of it doesn't. He's making the point that just having it white and flat shouldn't be considered Metro, and he has got a point. It's Metro styled, but apart from the new home screen, or the new file screen, which does lend itself to sort of the Metro principles in terms of what Metro looks like on Windows 8, they haven't overdone it with regards to how much the Metro integration is going to look like. And I actually think that's the right decision, because people got upset enough when the ribbon came in as a theoretically better UI principle. People don't like change in Office at all. It's really, you can't let go of the legacy, Renee, when it comes to the Office platform. On its own, you have to do it in stages, simply because Office is so understood by just about everybody who uses a computer. So you just can't do it. Where we have seen some innovation even, and something a little bit different is, of course, the OneNote Metro app, which there was a bit of suggestion. I don't think it's available yet in my marketplace in my store, but there has been some previews of it around the internet, and that is what you'd consider a full Metro touch experience. And OneNote is the app for me, apart from maybe PowerPoint, where you need to have that touch experience, where it's completely designed for interaction with, let's say, a pen. And they've done an interesting thing. They've put the ribbon on a radial menu. So the idea is you can sort of tap this radial menu and everything appears around on the outside of it in a nice circle, and it looks good. It's a good idea for a touch interface that needs to have a lot of options, and I think that is, if you like, where Office is going to go eventually. It's just a case of OneNote is the first app that needs to be really well optimized for touch. Hopefully there'll be a version of PowerPoint like that as well. There's no real need for Outlook with the Mail app. The rest of them need to stay keyboard and mouse focused for now, because in honesty, that is how people use Office. Even on phones, we don't use Office too long on phones, because as much as they're cut down versions, it just doesn't work for long periods of time. So that's where I think it should be.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, they can't change, Office is a big seller for them. They can't change it radically too much, but I think they're going in a nice direction. They want to ease us in a little bit, so it's fine. Let's move off of Office before I start falling asleep.
It's important.
I know Office is big. It's no doubt it's important. I just
okay. Let me
PowerPoint OneNote. It's like, sheesh.
Let me do the link then. So obviously the other big part of Office is the fact that it now has a lot of integration, heavy integration with keeping your documents in SkyDrive. Go.
Yeah, so this is kind of a cool thing. This is actually probably the coolest thing about the new Office, actually, is the fact that it auto-saves to your SkyDrive account, which is obviously preferential to just backing up to your hard disk. So, this is nice. We're finally seeing SkyDrive become, more mainstream and integrated across their product line, as it should. It is a universal cloud storage system, so everything Microsoft should be taking advantage of it, and now we're finally starting to see that, so that's actually a big deal. So,
yeah. So segue into the first app story. I think I set it up pretty well.
Yeah, well, we got quite a few app stuff, and we'll get a couple too, the Xbox Live stuff. So, yeah, speaking of SkyDrive, 2.2 came out today, and as far as we can tell, it's mostly UI overhaul. It's matching in line with the recent SkyDrive UI overhaul, which is that they changed the main logo and flattened it out a little bit. It's darker blue, and now the folders don't look like little 3D folders, which they did before, which is always odd. Now they're like little blue folders that are flat. And so it looks nice. It's still speedy and works well. I didn't check, but I'm pretty positive you still can't multiple select for uploading, which is kind of the feature I really want. It's a pain if you want to upload 5 photos. You got to go photo by photo, Of course, you can have an auto upload in the background, but that's a separate thing too. I think if you upload manually, you can get the full resolution of the photo, whereas if you're doing it with the camera, it still shrinks them down a bit. We haven't followed up on that in a little while, but that was sort of the problem before. So it's nice to see that update come, though. Nothing huge, no massive new features. There you go. Instant messaging with Nimbuzz is now in a marketplace. I don't use Nimbuzz. I remember playing with it years ago. I think it was both on Windows Mobile and Palm had versions.
It was a really big deal because, of course, it brings across loads of different instant messaging clients. It was kind of the go-to one when it came to. Yeah. Did they?
I think it was Nimbuzz. I think abandoned a lot of their. They stopped doing a lot of that proprietary handling, AIM, and everything. They just became their own service. That's what the tradition seems to have been for a lot of these.
It currently supports Facebook, Yahoo Messenger, MSN, and Gtalk, which is most of them. Because that was always it was kind of the go-to chat client in my Symbian days at Nimbuzz. So it's interesting to see it actually coming across. I have to say would strongly believe that seeing as Nimbuzz is one of their strongest platforms was probably Symbian. It's probably no coincidence that they're coming over to Nokia's new platform. Possibly trying to keep their market share up.
Yeah,
it looks like a cool app. Though. I mean, it's what I'd call a colourful Metro design. It's sort of taken a bit of an inspiration from perhaps what I'd say is Office 2010's style of sort of having the orange swish, even though I know that's part of Nimbuzz's branding, and sort of just kept the Metro design quite colourful. And some people that sort of complain that there's not necessarily enough colour in Metro, I think would enjoy this app. It's definitely worth giving a try.
Yeah, feedback seems to be pretty good with it. Not my cup of tea. I actually hate instant messaging on phones. I think it's totally stupid.
You
hate it.
You like Kik?
Yeah, but it's not instant messaging.
It kind of
instant
is.
message. I mean, it kind of is, but Kik for me is more of just a text messaging replacement. You know, that I can use internationally. That's what I like about Kik. But I don't feel like with IM Plus and these other ones, I feel like I have to kind of stay in that window and that chat and back and forth. Like the presumption is different with Kik. With Kik, it's like you can send messages. You can use it like a regular chat, but you don't have to. With something when you're on AIM and you message someone, it's just the presumption is like, okay, let's talk via typing back and forth for a couple of minutes. That's kind of the idea behind it, right? And I hate that on a phone, especially without a keyboard. Like, I mean, at least a physical keyboard. I still kind of really want one of those again. So, anyways, Windows Phone Central App Roundup to Summer Olympics. So if you haven't seen this yet, George has been doing a lot of app roundups lately, and he's got his picks for 2002 Olympics. Of course, the official app for the Olympics came out to Windows Phone this week too, so you can just go ahead and get that one and skip to the chase. But there's some third-party options out there that offer some different views and perspectives and options as well. So go check that out if you're curious.
Or if you're going to the Olympics, which of course is when it's probably going to be really important.
Yeah, right.
I'm half expecting you to have tickets, Daniel.
No, I don't do sports. If I'm going to watch Olympics, I actually do like watching Olympics. I like watching. I mean, I like watching Olympics, but I'll just watch it on TV. And
don't you need to get a TV for that?
I mean, I just don't see the point in going to the events anymore with HD. I don't know, it doesn't make sense. Anyways,
what about atmosphere and experience and seeing
considering I don't really like people and consider them obnoxious, the idea of being in a crowd of them kind of is not appealing to me. So.
Do you know what? It's a pleasure to talk to you every couple of weeks.
I like small groups. I don't like big groups of people. It's kind of that simple. I'm not really impressed with the human race so far. Anyways, we'll talk about a homebrew app that came out, which I really like because I use homebrew. I realize only a small percentage of our audience does, but it raises an interesting question that a lot of people have complained about. So it's called Keep Wi-Fi Alive. And it does what it says. You run it, and it keeps the Wi-Fi on even when the device is off. Because what happens now is when you power off the device, and here I'm just talking about the display. I know there's confusion. I don't actually mean turning off the phone. I mean powering off the display. Wi-Fi will cut off, and then when you turn it back on, it takes a few seconds, and it will just reconnect. The notion behind that seemed plausible, was for battery saving. But as it turned out, a lot of people have been doing tests, and it doesn't really seem to use that much battery when it's on and back. And I think, and part of the reason is because your radio, it depends on how good of your cell signal is and what kind of cell signal you have, because it still needs to power up your radio to then check for email, so it's already doing something. But it seems like the Wi-Fi may use, if you're going to use one, it's going to choose Wi-Fi over cell data. So it seems like the Wi-Fi may be actually using less power, and I actually like it. Things are faster for me. I get messages like Kik a little bit quicker because it's pulls it down easier for me. And so I actually do like this hack. And like I said, it raises the question a lot of people have asked is why don't we have this option to turn on? I think Microsoft didn't want to give an option because they don't like giving too many options because that's sort of the point. Android has like 9,000 options. It's a little overwhelming. But I think it raises an interesting question about which is better. Now, Microsoft presumably has their reasons for this. They do extensive battery testing and ways to optimize the device. And I'm curious if this will be any different in Windows Phone 8 or what their exact reasoning is for the way it is now. But if you can sideload apps, you want to do this. Go on.
Yeah, so with regards to the purpose of keeping Wi-Fi on, I think it only really helps people who are either A, on a very strict data contract, or B, people who have really weak mobile signal normally. So the faster one allows their phone to do things in the background, like our app actually going off and getting the latest news. For that, it does make sense. In terms of for normal use, if you've got a decent 3G or above connection, I don't really see why the Wi-Fi needs to be kept alive, honestly, except for when it needs to download something in the background. But it's also when you leave it downloading something. But then again, it does that anyway. It's all the same a brilliant app. I mean, actually, I should be careful not to get away from that. It's a really clever idea, and it just exploits a little trick that actually theoretically we could probably do the same thing on our app if we wanted to. I wonder. I'll have a think.
Yeah. Let me explain briefly how this works. So the idea what people found out was that when you're streaming music or anything basically to the device, some apps have this ability where when they go into the background, stuff is streaming, the Wi-Fi connection will stay on, and even if it's kind of like stopped working, And so what they did was this creates basically a fake track, and it opens up that channel to act like it is streaming something where, of course, it's a dead track. Nothing's actually coming in. And it keeps that channel open and allows the Wi-Fi to stay on. So it's kind of clever. Actually, it does seem to shut off after a while. It doesn't seem completely too permanent, but it definitely does stay on a lot longer than not using it. So I've been using it pretty regularly, and I like it. Especially, I only have so many SIM cards. So some of my phones I like to sort of keep on Wi-Fi just so I can test for things. So it's an interesting question, and funny solution, actually. So hopefully we'll see something like this for Windows Phone 8, but who knows at this point.
Okay. Well, I say make enough noise about it in Microsoft Banter Listen, even. What else have we got? Gate Guru.
Yeah, Geek Guru. This is actually a pretty major app. It's on iOS and Android, and what it is, I'm traveling a lot more, so my ears kind of perked when I saw this. Basically, Gate Guru is another app that, it helps you at airports. What it does is it provides maps of all the airports, all the major ones. It has restaurants of all those airports, and then even reviews of them. And it's kind of a good guide for an airport. Well, if you're going to kill some time at an airport, you want to find out, hey, where's this restaurant? What's the best one? Where is that around where I am? Pull up a quick map, move around. It also totally integrates with Twitter, Foursquare, I think even LinkedIn maybe, and it also does TripIt, which I use a lot. TripIt is a pretty amazing service. And so it ties it all in. It is a little slow and sluggish, but that could be, of course, fixed in a later update. But it's nice because a lot of people who travel around and business people do use these apps, and so it's nice to see that. And it looks well done, and I kind of like what it brings to the device. So I'm kind of a big fan of
it. Right. So I don't particularly use flights. I think I've flown a few times in my entire life, so it's pretty much I have nothing to add. Well, there's a couple of things in the rest. Actually, another one I want to pick up. Mirror's Edge, of course, came out this week.
Yes, lots of game stuff. Yeah, let's talk about the Xbox Live games. Yeah, so go Mirror's Edge. Talk about that.
Mirror's Edge is awesome. I mean, I finished the story on the game already. It's one of the first games on Windows Phone that I've kept going back to just to play because I thought it was awesome, and it's partly just because I did enjoy the Xbox game as well. I think that's kind of the reason I kept going back to it. That plus the soundtrack is fantastic. I kept playing Mirror's Edge. I played it all the way through. I need now to go back and do all the challenges. It's brilliant graphics. The gameplay actually gets quite challenging towards the end. It keeps it really interesting. And I know it's only a Nokia exclusive, so we should make that very clear. It's Nokia exclusive for now. I believe that's only for a few months, isn't it? And then or for a few weeks even, and then everyone else is going to get it. But it's worth the wait, guys. So look forward to that one. Have you finished it yet?
No, it's sort of the downside to my job is I get to report a lot of this stuff, but to actually find time to play these games is very difficult for me. So I played like 2 or 3 levels of it, and I enjoyed it. I thought the graphics were well done. but it's something I haven't actually been able to sit down. It actually, that kind of sucks about it. Like, I get all these games and I forget, like, I just don't have time to play them. It's tough. The downside of being a blogger, tech journalist type, I suppose. So, but I was really impressed with it. And I thought it was a nice, port they did. Now, this is, of course, the big issue here. So this is the first Nokia Lumia exclusive EA game. What that means for everybody. Luckily, the backlash hasn't been too bad so far. But curious question. A lot of people are asking, when does the exclusive ends? And the answer is, no one knows. I asked Nokia, and Nokia was very considerate. They didn't just respond back. They're like, let's find out. And they tried to find out, and they got back to me a couple of times, and there's no firm date when this exclusive ends. So I really don't know. We do know for some of the Zynga games, it's 60 days, right? AT&T came out with that number. So that may be a good guide, but Nokia doesn't seem to be completely sure about that. Because they didn't come back and tell me 60 days for this game. So I honestly don't know. Maybe it's because it's somewhat flexible depending on how many people download it, and maybe there's some number. I really don't know. And no one at Nokia apparently knows. Or if they do, they're not telling me. And that was kind of their position. It was just so. That's that. But there's a lot more. And that's unfortunate because I think there's like 24 other EA games that they're supposed to get. Not all those are exclusive, though. I should point that out. So only some of these are going to be exclusive to Nokia. So they're not getting 24 exclusive games to the platform.
Do we want to talk quickly about the earnings call? Because I've just posted up some information about it.
Yeah, in fact, I'm trying to see what I'm trying to do. I'm doing a podcast and manage that, too, at the same time. It's kind of difficult. And,
Okay, so the headline is
the British writers aren't around, so we have someone who can get that posted. Yeah, so I don't want to go too much into this because I don't like live analysis of earnings calls. That's ready to set myself up for saying something stupid. The notion is that Microsoft just released the earnings call.
Hang on, we might get some technical difficulties by the sounds of it. Audio and video have gone for a lot of people. Yeah, if Renee can hear us, hopefully he can tell us, guys. If it comes back, please say. Renee's saying reload the page. So if you... Okay, cool. We're back again. So you were saying you don't want to do live analysis.
Yeah, the general thrust seems to be that Microsoft has posted a loss for the first time in history. I don't know the context of that because they had to write off that
it's not much.
Yeah, it was something like 190 million or something like that. I think
for 492 million loss by the looks of things for what they've shown so far. But as you say, there was about a 7 billion write-off with regards to an acquisition that didn't really work out. It's one quarter. That's pretty good news overall. We'll do some proper analysis of that, as you say, get some idea of how the Windows Phone division's done, how the Windows division's doing. But that's
they never
the
release actual numbers for Windows Phone because it's tucked in, I think, the entertainment division. So you have to sort of break it apart, and then you're just kind of guessing.
Oh, okay. Well, Entertainment and Devices Division revenue grew 20% for the fourth quarter, so that's pretty good news.
Yeah, and that's also like Connect and stuff, so it's kind of hard. But we'll be getting that post up in a few moments, and then we'll do analysis in a little while too. But yeah, that seems to be the thrust of it. I wouldn't put too much into it. I think Microsoft stock was still up for today anyways. So that's that. If more comes in as we're talking, we'll try to figure that out.
We'll see what we can get in.
Let's see what other Xbox Live games. So the Nokia thing, the Lumia, they're going to be getting some more exclusives, but not all of those are exclusive, so don't get too upset. But yeah, nice game. Mirror's Edge. Nice to see. Very exciting. It kind of came out of nowhere too. What other games? We've had quite a few this week, actually. So we first came out with Contract Killer, which is the second title from Blue we got within the last 2 weeks. The other one, of course, was Gunbro. Both are interesting games. They're both free games, and they're also known as freemium. And this is a very decisive issue for many. A lot of people are just like, it's free, shut up, who cares? And then some people are like, I hate freemium. Now, Gunbro's...
People hate anything they have to pay for.
Yeah, but Gun Bros, you don't need to pay for anything. There's no paywall. This is the important distinction here in Gun Bros, at least. There's no paywall, meaning there is at no point in the game where you need to buy anything to complete it. You can buy things to make it easier. You can buy things to make it more fun and enjoyable. That's subjective, of course, but you don't need to actually pay anything to complete the game. And so that's an important distinction because it could be the other way, which is basically just sophisticated shareware. But that's not the case with this game. Now, I will admit Gun Bro does take an extremely long time to load up. Contract Killer 2, partly because it's connecting up to the Gun Bro, to Glue's servers and requires some feedback. Paul, our gaming guru, of course, is in contact with Glue and actually working with them on the bugs that are kind of present in the platform. I like to point out it's one difference between us and other sites. We just don't, lack of better words, we don't just crap on everything and say it's bad. We try to actually work with developers and go, hey, there's some problems here. Let's see, this is what you need to fix. And a lot of developers are pretty receptive. And I find that to be a better model than just ripping apart everybody's work and saying, it's terrible, skip it. But that's us. So he's actually in contact with them trying to make this stuff a little better. So hopefully we'll see it in future updates. Part of the problem, though, Glue Mobile has been sort of upfront with us about this, is that they're saying a lot of these issues are also platform restrictive. There's a reason why Windows Phone 8 is going to be big for gaming, and that's because of the engines it goes to and the more native development. So a lot of the problems you see in gaming on the Xbox Live games right now is partly because of the system that's in place, and that's going to be changing with the Windows Phone 8. So when devs have issues, they're also working within the confines of what Microsoft's allowing them to do, and so it can be difficult. Having said that, I like Gun Bros. I think it's kind of fun. The graphics are good on it. Contract Killer, I only played for a few minutes. It's okay. I'm not really that much into it. But have you played either one?
I played Gun Bros for a little bit to see what that was like, and it seemed like it's an interesting concept. I like the idea of you have got some sort of level of multiplayer there, haven't you? As far as I understand,
it's very dense. It's a dense game.
A dense game,
meaning there's a lot to it. There's lots of sub screens and things to buy and generators and I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on the screen. It's not a simple, dual joystick shooter where you just walk around murdering things. There's always weapons to upgrade. I always find these games where you upgrade different weapons and different bullets and different uniforms and all this kind of stuff. It gets kind of a little overwhelming sometimes. Where, in that sense, the menus I find a little bit disorientating and they're kind of small. But you didn't experience any of that.
No, well, I didn't play it for long enough. I've been too busy playing Mirror's Edge, honestly. So at the moment I'm either at work or commuting, and when I commute, I play Mirror's Edge. Or still, I Stunt 2. I'm still playing that actually. It's a wicked game.
I Stunt 2 is pretty wicked.
Yeah.
I kind of want to go play that game again, actually. So those are the two big Glue games, and then this third one came out, Load Runner Classic, which kind of came out of nowhere because no one knew about this game was even in development, let alone it was going to come out yesterday. And so it kind of came out. It's $2.99. A lot of people also kind of lamented the price. That stuff doesn't bother me. I'm sorry. There's a trial in the game. You try it if you like it. I have no problem dropping $3 for a game. I just don't. I kind of feel bad for people who this is this ultimate insult to them to pay $3, but that's them. I thought this game was really cool. I haven't actually played Load Runner before. I'm not that familiar with it, but upon reading about it, it's got a very rich history. And I thought it was a great port. They did a really nice job with it. The graphics are great. The music is pretty awesome. And it feels like they didn't just port it over. They felt like they really customized it for Windows Phone. And so I gave them the $3. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it's a cool game. I really dig it. So that's me.
I might give that one a try in that case. That's a pretty good review. We'll say one thing though. Was it last week or last podcast we were talking about? What was that? What was the game? See, it's already gone from my head because it's just I'm about to say something negative about it. But Mush, that's the one.
All right.
I'm really disappointed with Mush. I was so excited about it last week, and
really, most of the reviews have been pretty solid for it.
So here's the only way I can describe it with Mush is that the developers have made what is a pretty great structure for the game, pretty great engine for the game. The developers have got some fantastic graphics. The design is good. The idea sort of behind it was good. The characters are well designed. They just forgot to make it fun. I don't know. There's no challenge behind it. I just sort of smile and go up and collect shit, and then I frown and go down and I collect shit, and it's just, I don't know if so I'm quite a few levels in, and I was expecting something to change. I was expecting it to get a bit clever with the physics design or something, but I'm really disappointed by Mush. I thought but I still I mean, I'd still drop the price for it. It wasn't that expensive. Maybe it'll be something that I'll just play with occasionally and think, yeah, maybe. But I just thought, yeah, I wasn't impressed at all. I have to say, I'm really disappointed. I was kind of hoping it was going to be some really awesome game, and it's not quite lived up to what I was hoping for. But most of the reviews disagree with me, so hopefully that's good news for the developer. It just needs to be a bit more fun. That's all I can say. Mirror's Edge is that for me.
So yeah, I wish I could have a stronger opinion, but I haven't been able to play these games for very long. So.
That's fine. You had opinions on the other ones. We'll call it a balance.
yeah. And the other news, of course, was well, just quickly, Mini Squadron got pulled from the marketplace. This story is still developing. We're gonna have more probably follow up with this. This one's a little complicated. Basically, there's two studios involved. There's the one that made the game originally, and then there's the one that worked on bringing it over, I think, to Windows Phone. So we were in direct contact with the latter, but not necessarily the former, but now we are. The deal seems to be that the main company that actually made the game first, the Japanese company, had a broken achievement. They didn't have, quote-unquote, time to fix it. That's actually a quote. And part of that's because they moved away from Windows Phone development, I guess. They're just focusing on Android. And because they don't have time to fix the broken achievement, Microsoft pulled the app. So that's actually what happened. Now, the company that's dealing with the actual port of it, and over here in the U.S., wasn't even aware it was pulled. And so until we notified them, which kind of tells you just how broken this is. So, it's kind of a bad situation. I don't know who to blame. I'm guessing I'm going to go with the developer because they don't have time they didn't have time to fix something that's broken in their game. I don't know what that means. Does it mean that they needed more time to fix it and they were fixing it?
It depends. I mean, it depends on what. Microsoft probably have some pretty strict certification rules for Xbox Live games, so I'd imagine that's part of what they're playing with. It might, as we've been talking about recently, there was another article about Xbox Live update. I've forgotten the name of the game. No, it's gone from my head. Whereby some developers sometimes have to pay for patches to their games, certainly on Xbox. I don't know if it's the same for Windows Phone. So I would wonder if they didn't have the time and resources to do it.
I'm getting the impression that they just lost interest in it, and then Microsoft was like, fine, we're pulling it, which is unfortunate. The only reason I'm making a big deal is because of all the games on Xbox Live on Windows Phone, which I've stated this before. I find indie games actually a lot more interesting on Windows Phone than a lot of the Xbox Live stuff, despite the whole achievement thing. But Mini Squadron was one of the few games I was actually totally addicted to. I'm not saying that there weren't bugs and things that need to be fixed. Of course there were. But having said that, I got tremendous enjoyment of playing that game, especially launching every time and hearing it go, Mini Squadron! I just thought it was hilarious. That's my impression, by the way. So I was really disappointed to see it gone just because, tear in my eyes. One of the few games I actually enjoyed. I would have loved to have seen it actually fixed and, continued development, but that's the case. So now to fall back on, the snowboarding one, Ice Stunt 2, which is kind of similar in a lot of ways.
Yeah, go back to Ice Stunt 2. It's a wicked game, although it gets really difficult towards the end.
You know what you do? So I told people this before.
Yeah, you chose death, didn't you?
Yeah. If you could just buy the character, and then you'll just live forever and you can't die. And that makes the game tremendously fun because you can just sometimes I don't play games. I just want to screw around, and I just will flip around and die and just try extreme stuff. And that for me is the entertainment. But it's kind of like that whole thing with Grand Theft Auto, where you just run around and murder people and you don't actually complete the game. I don't know. It's kind of sadistic, I guess, but whatever. So
I'm not surprised, given our earlier discussion of you hating most people. It just sounds like anything on your phone which allows you to murder the population, you'll be happy with.
Yeah, I gotta start painting myself in a different light. I'm starting to come across.
I'm actually debating going and trying to make a game that involves some kind of brutal attacks on cats to see how you feel about that one.
Oh, you can't do that. Part of that 4chan culture, I guess. Cats are sacred. Everything else is go.
There you go. Should we go to the community?
Yeah, let's go to the community. Do we have comments, I guess, from last
Yes,
time?
we do, from last week. So Chris Lynch asks, why does our video only have one audio channel and it's the right channel? I want to ask that question as well. Renee, sort it out.
Yeah, we get this asked every week. I honestly have no idea.
Yeah, Renee just he's fixed it. He says, cool.
It says
so
fixed.
if you can only hear one channel when you're listening to this through the video, then blame Renee Ritchie. That's at Renee Rich. Comment from Thammers is, I don't understand when people claim that there will be no more support for Windows Phone 7 from app developers. Most of the apps don't really need the new Windows Phone 8 APIs immediately, so why would devs cut themselves off from a large proportion of their user base? Seems like a bad strategy. He's actually written a really long comment here, so I'm not going to read the whole thing out. But his principle, his point is that people can stick with Windows Phone 7, and I agree. It's exactly what I said as well last week, and that I think that it makes more sense for us to now continue to focus on Windows Phone 7 as the development platform of choice, rather than moving over to Windows Phone 8 as soon as possible, which is also why I'm not developing my resources at the moment to those platforms and working on a highly requested feature for our app. And yeah, he also says that Microsoft is taking a huge risk with regards to this. He doesn't believe that however, he doesn't believe that you can continue to separate desktop and mobile kernels as Apple claims. He thinks that they need to start sharing, which of course Microsoft agree with. I don't think there's any more to say on that one. Someone else wanted to follow up on the comment about identity mine being slow on updates, oh, yes, I remember. Sorry, remember last week we were talking about the Twitter official app. So this is from someone who I believe is actually in Identity Mine. As you can imagine, the update frequency is not decided by us, but by the client. In this case, it'll obviously be Twitter. Yeah. In the case of Twitter, we were mandated to create the initial version of the app. We can only suggest to the client to update the app and add new features, but the final decision is theirs, which is a very good point. So we can't say that Identity Mine are slow on updates. Frankly, Identity Mine's done a fantastic job. It's a case of how much the client's willing to pay them for, such as the world of contracting.
It's true. It's a good point. Fair and honest. So we always try to represent the other side too. Like I said, it's as consumers, it's easy just to point blame, but of course it's complicated like a lot of things. So we appreciate that feedback in that regard. So.
I'm going to go to questions from the chat room now. I'm going to pick up ones that I've seen people ask repeatedly as to what news we have with regards to when we think there's going to be new Windows Phone 8 announcements. There's events coming up, I believe.
There's no announcements, but when we spoke with Microsoft back at the summit, so like one person asked, and we'll tie this in right now, when's the SDK coming? There is no firm date right now. The rumor was sometime the end of July, but that's fast approaching. That may or may not be the case. I don't really know. I think, I'm going to be flat out honest here, I don't think Microsoft is doing this very quickly and things change dynamically. I like to think they have windows and timeframes that they're going for, but I don't believe there's someone right now that has a master plan of exact dates of when things are going to happen, which is why the stuff is fuzzy. It's why the summit went from a 2-day developer summit to a 1-day general summit, right? And that happened really quickly. So, so when they're ready to announce the SDK, I think it'll be a pretty quick thing. We'll probably only get like a week or two heads up, and then they're going to hold little events, leading up to Windows Phone 8, and which is still technically, a little bit off. So that's what I think we can expect. So they're going to, and they'll probably go around and do these little developer sit-ins where they're going to. They did this too with Mango and everything, where developers can show up and they can learn about the new SDK stuff, and they'll be doing that around the country, and they'll have a big announcement. So I would expect a couple of weeks. We can say, I mean, this isn't secret, and it's kind of obvious that the SDK is in beta form right now. It's floating around, and some people have access to it. But, so they're putting the final touches on it. When it's actually come out, though, a couple of weeks, and we'll probably see more from Microsoft then, too. But they're going to slowly roll this out, So hopefully we'll hear something soon from them.
Another question from Tim DeVries. Any news on when AT&T is going to do their next update?
When AT&T is going to do their next update?
Yeah, I'm guessing for regards to Tango, etc.
We got what we could out of AT&T. They're obviously kind of dragging their feet. I don't know if they're going to be pushing everything off to 7.8 for that next update, which is kind of lame if that's what they're doing. But it's kind of weird because the Tango update has sort of rolled out for some of the Samsung devices, but other phones haven't. So I honestly don't know. I haven't heard much. They're being very tight-lipped about it. It's still an annoying process. All I can tell people is, the lights at the end of the tunnel. Microsoft
is when it comes to 7.8.
Yeah, they're going to start offering this, ability for people to manually update devices, which is just what we do now anyway. They're just going to make it more automated and simple for people. But this is the same problem. I don't expect next year when we're having this podcast we're going to be having this discussion anymore, and I'm pretty happy about that. We'll have to, of course, see how it actually comes to be, but that seems to be the case. So as soon as we find anything about AT&T or any other U.S. carrier, we'll definitely pass it on to you. But what we know right now.
What else have we got? Kunal Patney, was asking which Windows Phone brand we think we'll be getting. Also, which phone brand do you think you'll be getting when you get Windows Phone 8? I really, really want to see someone other than Nokia do something big and disruptive, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think that what we'll see is a huge PureView phone from Nokia, and I think that will be the way to go. But I hope that's not the case. I hope that HTC knock it out of the park, and I hope that Samsung show some real dedication to the platform as well. I'd really like to see some strong competition rather than just leaving it all to Nokia.
Mm-hmm.
That's mine. What else have we got? Incendi's asking, can we interview the guy that made the Farseer physics helper for the site? He'd love to hear his thoughts on Windows 8 and Windows Phone 8. Apparently his name's Andy Bewley. We can look into that. I'll leave that one with you to maybe look at giving that to Rich. That's about it for things. Oh, hang on. Any word on Verizon's Lumia? This is from Stay Classy. Also, is Verizon getting a top-level device or a budget Lumia? I
think Verizon's going to be a big player for Windows Phone 8. They were rumored to be at the summit. We're going to do something there, and at the last minute, that changed. I should tell you something. But they're getting ready to position themselves once again against AT&T. They won't allow AT&T to have this fund so long, and I think they're going to get big with it. Are they going to have a budget device? I honestly don't know. My guess, though, is that they're going to go probably something high-end, too. Having said that, Nokia has been very keen on this notion that every carrier is going to get something unique. So you're rarely going to see like the same device on all U.S. carriers. What you're going to see is somewhat customized, somewhat different version. So if Verizon wants some sort of high-end Nokia phone, Nokia will make it. Same thing with AT&T. What that actually translates into, will be interesting. But my guess is Verizon's going to be sort of a big player. I can't say anything about Sprint. Sprint's been pretty cold with Windows Phone 8. Even, recently, they were the only carrier that publicly didn't come out and say, gush over Windows Phone 8 at the summit. So I think that kind of says something about them. So that's that. Someone wants to know if we can give anything else as a teaser for Windows Phone 8. I can.
There's articles. There's articles out there that
we do reveal quite a bit in the article. I'm trying to think what else I could kind of tease you guys with. Off the top of my head, it's kind of hard.
Most stuff that we know. Most of the stuff that we know is about developer. So, okay, let's go with one teaser. There's rumors around regarding the lock screen.
Right.
Let's go with developers are going to have some level of control over the lock screen when it comes to Phone 8. We won't take the details, but there is some control potentially over the lock screen, which I'm finding very interesting with regards to what could possibly happen there. We'll leave it there as a tease. But
that's pretty fair. The lock screen stuff is going to be real interesting. I'm really excited about that, actually, because it's going to be really cool, both for developers and consumers. So that's all we can kind of really say on the matter.
And part of it was hinted about in another article that I did some time ago. So feel free to go back through my articles and have a look.
Yeah, well, notice we're not like headline whores with that stuff. We're not going to make a big headline out of it. We'll just sneak that stuff
we don't want to sort of get on the wrong side of Microsoft here.
Right. So just sometimes read between the lines and stuff, and you'll kind of get what we're talking about. So, but I think that's about it.
Yep. Do you want to wrap up, or shall I?
Yeah, you can do it.
All right then. Okay, you can find us all on Twitter at WP Central. You can find Dan when he's not busy being angry at the world at Daniel_Rubino. You can find George, our reviews editor, at Coppertop004. You can find Rich, British writer number one, at Rich Edmonds. You can find myself, British person, at JAYT Bennett with 2 T's. You can find Paul, our games editor, at SegaCon. And you can find Raphael, when he's around and not busy moving to Washington, at Within Raphael. Also, don't forget, of course, Matt at Rogue Code, and Dave, our forums. I don't know what the right word is there. I'm going to go with forums guru at big_D5. We should probably mention Rob Brand as well, shouldn't we, now that he's joined us? I've forgotten what his Twitter handle is. I apologise, Rob. Rob's also on the site. Go and have a look at find him on Twitter as well. I'll get that in there for next week. This has been a Mobile Nations podcast. Go to mobilenations.com for more great shows covering everything mobile, or head over to the WP Central forums if you'd like to get involved with our community in discussing more about Windows Phone news, devices, and apps. Thanks to the WP Central store for sponsoring this podcast, and thanks also to the great artists and music at ccmixer.org for offering us a great database of Creative Commons music, and you can find information about the music used on this podcast at the bottom of this post. That's just about it. Oh, and seeing as I've just found it, you can find Rob at GroovePoint. GroovePoint is his Twitter handle.
I knew it was something funny, unique.
It was something, yeah, it just was escaping me. And that's about it.
Sounds very good. Okay, everybody, take care. We'll be back in a week or two, and we'll chat then. Send us your questions. Take care, everybody.